Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Peter Abraham. I'm a registered nurse with varied experience from cardiology, medical surgical, which basically means all round, long-term care with rehab, and extensively in hospice. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you for visiting and spending some time. This channel discusses topics dealing with chronic illness that becomes terminal, hospice, end-of-life death doulas, which would be the topic for today's discussion. I'm also a book author, so during these videos, I may discuss either presentations or courses or book writing topics. I am just love discussing areas of this field. With that said, if you like this type of topics, if you have questions about any of the previous videos, this video, death, dying, hospice care, end-of-life doulas, holistic nursing, that's mind, body, spirit, and soul. Not everything is a pill, a tablet, or liquid medication. Please feel free to comment below. This is a non-judgmental channel. So I'm not going to force my thoughts or beliefs on you. I don't have to be right. I certainly don't know it all. I'll end there because I do have a habit of rabbit trails. So before I go on to the topic of this video, which is going to be an overview of an article that just published today that I wrote on the synergy of how end-of-life doulas can complement and work with hospice, like all episodes prior, I encourage you to do what I try to put in practice every day. What am I grateful for? Now, before I answer that question, why does this matter? In my experience as a person, as a hospice nurse, if you do not want to be depressed and pushed down and kept down and be a victim where all this stuff that happens to us in life, because life is not fair, if we don't develop resilience, we will be crushed. I'm a strong believer in resilience. I'm a strong believer in silver linings, that in any storm, no matter how bad the storm, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, for me, that's multiple components, but just speaking on the gratitude component, what are you grateful for today? That should be a question everyone asks every day of their lives, sometimes several times a day. So without further ado, what I am grateful for is I am so amazed on our vegetable garden on how well it's been doing. Now, several weeks to months from now, I might be, there's cicadas, there's infestation, whatnot. We'll deal with that when the time comes. But for the last several days, I've been able to have salads from our own garden. We planted some things we didn't even know we planted, like mustard greens. Oh, I wonder why that's a little bit on the bitter side, but very good and healthy for you. So I'm grateful for that. Over the past several 2 or 3 weeks maybe, I've been posting some one single page to multiple page PDF files to 2 hospice nursing support groups I belong to. And I actually compiled a book, including pages that have never been published, that I would have pages in my clipboard. I love these things. And so I compiled a book, 105 pages. Not that you're going to have all 105 in something like this, but I did 8.5 by 11 that it's paperback and hardcover, came out today. The Hospice Tools of the Trade, Hospice Tools of the Trade, Essentials for Hospice Nurses. How fitting that today, on April 23rd, is the start of the Alabama Hospice and Palliative Care Organization clinical conference for hospice nurses that focuses on tools of the trade. So that published today. There are pages on admission questions that you should consider asking if you're doing admissions. What question should you ask to get an idea of how rapidly are they declining? Now, yes, as a hospice nurse, you're going to walk in, they're dying, and you don't have to ask a single question. You know they're going to be on daily visits. You know that you got to get the ball rolling. But there's other cases where they might be 6 weeks, 8 weeks, uh, 12, 12, so on, up to 6 months out. How do you determine that? So there's a set of questions to ask. That is part of this book, Hospice, Mastering of Eligibility. And oops, sneaking in there, Whispers of Time. But I have these are just the questions. There's a section for those of you who do a lot of GIP, or maybe you don't do it often enough, that like, how do I know they're truly eligible? So I have a couple pages on GIP that either through the book or with you, or through just I made sure the margins that you could fit it on a copier and print out the pages for GIP. There's invalid hospice diagnoses. There's pages on quick references for the HOPE tool. When do you need to do the different visits? There's the opioid conversions, portable oxygen tanks. How long will that last based on liter flow? And whether you do admissions or routine visits, PRN visits, there's a long section on decline. So I have a number of pages, like if labs are available, if they're not available, what are you going to be observing? What are caregivers going to be reporting? Just to spark your mind. And so that came out today. Hospice Tools of the Trade. The paperback's $15.95. Hardcover is much more, just because of the Amazon print cost goes through the roof for hardcover. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very, very grateful for you just spending the time here. So without further ado, let's do this review for the article that came out today. I'll put the link in the description below, including the Hospice Tools of the Trade. That's part of the Empowering Hospice Nurses book series, now 21 books that are published just for hospice nurses to support you, uplift you, and help you bloom. After the video, just a short outro. Thanks. Hello, I just want to review an article that I wrote looking at the synergy of hospice care and end-of-life doulas. Sometimes there's confusion that an end-of-life doula or a death doula, they're called both, are somehow competing with hospice care, or that a family only needs one or the other. And nothing further can be the truth. And granted, that is my opinion and my experience as a hospice registered nurse who is looking at offering doula services. And from a point of view, I've already been doing tele doula services, remote doula services for a kind lady in India, a kind lady in London, as well as someone in New York. I'm down here in central Kentucky. So this article just came out today, Wednesday, April 22nd, looking at how hospice and end-of-life doulas work together synergistically. So I'm not going to go over every component of the article. This is at compassioncrossing.info. Links in the description below. But I do want to focus on going here the role of the end-of-life doula. So we're talking about non-medical support. Now, I wish we lived in a world where there was zero fine print, maybe zero without the OK symbol. But we do live in a world where we have to give disclaimers. So there are end-of-life doulas who happen to be nurses. They might be a licensed practical nurse or a registered practical nurse. I mean, practical, it is practical. A registered nurse. They might even be an advanced practice registered nurse, a nurse practitioner. In those cases, there should be extreme transparency as to Is this person who is saying they're a death doula or an end-of-life doula, are they coming on as a pure non-medical support and companionship role, or in addition, are they offering concierge services where they can go above and beyond because of their medical background? So just putting that out there as fine print. So part of the key aspects of what non-medical support means, and some examples: spiritual guidance. I remember as a hospice nurse, I've had the wonderful opportunity, only a handful of times. They're becoming more and more common. This is when I worked in Pennsylvania as a hospice registered nurse. But there's so much more that they could do above and beyond hospice, which is why they synergize so closely together. So while some hospices do have volunteer coordinators that get involved in creating legacy projects, uh, that's not always a given. So one of the things that death doulas can offer is, let's create a legacy, a long-lasting legacy that can exist long after the person has passed away. This might be a book, whether it's published or not. This could be a video message, letter. I personally, as a hospice nurse, been involved with patients writing letters that they would that somebody would give out to family members for years to come, like on birthdays and holidays. Our projects, ethical based wills, life reviews. Some doulas provide respite care. This goes above and beyond hospice. I do offer caution. I mentioned the transparency. I do offer cautions. There are death doulas out there that don't have medical training, and it's not necessary to be a death doula. So if you have an interest in being a death doula, you do not need a single ounce of medical training. Now, you should receive, as part of your training process, I'm going to use the word certification loosely, because the certification for death doulas is not a national, a federal, or worldwide recognized process. So my registered nursing license, I took the same nursing boards in Pennsylvania that somebody takes in Texas and Florida and Canada. I'm sorry, not Canada. Apology. Canada's own governance, its own state, but Alaska and all the different 50 states, of which Canada is not. The test is the same. So while there is a national compact state where, like in Kentucky, my registered nursing license is recognized in I think 40 other states, there are 41 altogether. Um, Not every state recognizes Pennsylvania, for example, even though it's the same test. But before I go down the rabbit trail, for death doulas, there is guidance. There's a growing focus on how do we have uniformity, but there's not the same level of training as in a nurse. So sticking with the respite, so I don't go too far down this trail, um, respite can involve doing medical things, medications. Whether you view turning a patient as in medical process or not, that might be fine print. But for those doulas giving respite care, you really have to look at, what does that involve? And maybe it's not that you can't. Maybe you need to involve third-party caregivers for a complete uh, role for doing that, where they give the medications and they do the turning, and you're the orchestra leader, so to speak. And just looking at how death doulas complement. There are so many benefits for having a death doula as part of the dying process. This is above and beyond personalized care for the patient. Hospice does provide personal care, but there are nurses like myself, and I don't say this to lift myself up because I was not alone, but I was among the rare. I was that hospice nurse that would fight management, that for my home patients, I was there an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half. And I still remember the case in Glen Rock, Pennsylvania, where I stayed close to 4 hours with that family because I thought the patient could die at any moment. I got to the point where, not today. Now, they did die the next day. But I got chastised. Like, Peter, you're only supposed to be there 30 to 45 minutes. And I worked with a nurse when I worked at Grain Hospice, and Grain's a great organization. I recommend Grain. But there was a nurse there. They still might be there. They're a wonderful nurse from a skills perspective. They have a case where they had a patient who was taken on the hospice. It wasn't an inappropriate admission. It was a correct admission. But the patient came on board with a dehisced wound. So if any of you who are nurses watching this, a dehisced wound is where the wound separated from the hospital. That never should have been discharged from the hospital because of this wound dehiscence. And it became infected. And while the patient was appropriate for hospice, the patient should not have been discharged. And this was a case where the patient could live potentially for years if this is fixed. So this nurse appropriately, ethically, morally worked with as a team to get this patient taken back to the hospital off hospice, and she saved that patient's life and added many years of quality life to this patient. So from a skills perspective, wonderful. But she would literally brag that the longest that she was ever in a patient's home was 45 minutes because the wife of the patient forced her to stay. Are you kidding me? Forced? And if any of you are hospice nurses, use home care, home base, and you're familiar that it tracks the time in the home and it tracks the drive time. It tracks it's like it's the watchdog. I still remember the case where this nurse went to see one of my patients who was an addict and an alcohol at a alcoholist. Oh my word, my language skills are gone. Alcoholic and home patient, and we had to do medication counts. And because of the vast amount, it was more than one narcotic in the home, it would take me a minimum of 15 minutes to count and to document. I would have the current count, the previous count, the expected utilization based on when I last came and who was there last, and how many days and hours passed, what should be left, so that we can do an education encouragement. This is not about hand slapping or judgment. This patient was sick and terminal, but it was 15 minutes just to count and document that. And then I would be there for another hour to another hour and 15 minutes. Remember my average, an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half, doing education, encouragement, support. This is a patient that there were times I walked in and he was passed out on the hospital bed. They couldn't get up and the family's panicking. Did he overdose? Is he dying? What's going on? This was a very sensitive and critical case. And this nurse was in and out in 18 minutes. 18 minutes. I looked at the documentation. There were the medication counts. There was no previous. It was just the current counts and in and out. That infuriates me as somebody who looks at, was that compassionate? I'm not talking about skills. Amazing nurse, but that was not compassionate. And you could argue ethics and moral. That's its own discussion. But one of the benefits of the death doula, getting back on track, is they spend far more time with patients and families than hospice does on average. Because I, as a hospice nurse, I'm not the only one, but I'm among the few that I am going to fight management. I want to give that patient and family the time they need. And if I could give them more, I would. The catch I have is that I do have to balance that I often have 6 or more patients to see rolling, so lots of driving. That particular addict patient that we're talking about a few moments ago was an hour drive from almost everyone else that I was seeing. On a good day, that patient was 45 minutes from my closest patient from them. On a bad day, they were an hour away. Wow. You have a lot of driving to do, so even that's part of the catch. That's part of the catch. That Glen Rock patient that I pushed 4 hours, that patient was a half hour away from everyone else. So that was a very long day. I got home very late that day, which is okay for me. That's my gift, so to speak. And from a point of view, I was paid. But getting back to the doulas, there's such personalized care that they provide, the emotional support that they provide. I cannot tell you, the fear of dying is unbelievably common. I wish we lived in the world of fine print again. My loved ones who accepted, and I'm not trying to preach, but my loved ones who had Christ Jesus as their Lord, Savior, and King were not afraid to die. Not a single one. Over the multiple years of hospice, not a single one was afraid to die. The family had concerns, but not the patient. But not everyone has Jesus as their Lord, Savior, and King, and it is not our job to push our faith on them. I don't prophesize. No one should. So they have a fear of dying. So there are ways to address this without bringing up faith or religion or pushing something that they may not be able to accept at the time. This is about their journey, not our us. This is about them, not us. This is their journey. We are there to support them in their journey. So there are ways to approach this to reduce their fear, to reduce their loneliness, their anxiety, their anticipatory grief of what's to come, and their need for meaning. So there's a lot. And again, the article is going to be linked in the video. Again, compassioncrossing.info. So this goes into the complementary roles. I'm rolling down because I'm not here to go over every single aspect of this article that you could read line by line yourself, but just comparison of the roles. Social work does offer some of that emotional support, and the social worker and the hospice chaplain can typically stay longer than the nurse, but even then, they're under push from big corporate and management. Here's how much time you should spend on average in those staff members for hospice that push the boundaries, like I did as a nurse. Faced the potential for termination. I was. Face flack, face peer pressure, like that nurse that spent 18 minutes with my drug addict and my alcoholic patient. She would push back on me, and the agency would literally praise her in my presence. I should be more like her, and it's hard. I didn't let it define me. I will never let peer pressure define me. But they face this. The social worker faces this, the chaplain, but they can spend more time. But that's where the doula comes into play. That's where the doula. And again, the education elements, there are areas, again, because end of life doulas do not have to be medically trained. So there are certain areas where they may not be educated to give that training. Fine print again, they can pick up through experience and wisdom this patient's in pain, and they can call hospice 24/7. Somebody needs to visit, or if they're there when the caregiver's there, or they can call and alert the family. So there's a lot of synergy, that combined synergy, the benefits of combining, and just so much value. So this is where I'm ending this portion. Thank you. Thank you for watching that. Again, the article is going to be in the link below. The book Hospice Tools of the Trade link on Amazon is going to be in the description below. If you have any questions, one of the things that'll be coming out over the next few weeks is I am pursuing the direction of becoming an end-of-life doula. I have mentioned that I have been operating as one at no charge whatsoever, helping a lady out in India over the course a little over a year. Um, that's why end of life doulas does. That's where there's also a difference between end of life doulas and hospice services. Is there's no prognosis requirement. So if you have any interest, I'm going down this road myself. I'm going to be becoming a member of the National End of Life Doula Association uh, probably over the next few weeks. I'm going to be meeting with a tax accountant, business service to get everything in order licensing wise, starting in literally May 1st. I don't know if I'll have all the paperwork submitted at that time, but things are rolling. I'll be doing free community workshops and seminars in central Kentucky, just trying to remove the stigma that sadly exists with death and dying, especially in the home setting. So for those of you who have any interest at all in what's it like, what does this journey look like from the very ground up? You've not done it yourself, you have an interest in doing this. What does that look like from step one, step two, step three? And this is not charging. I am freely sharing what I'm doing. Please ask. I already have a presentation worked out. I'll be going over that presentation with you on Friday. That's going to be draft format. It may change by the time it's delivered to the community. But I love helping others grow and bloom. I believe that we're put on this earth to do more than just sit. We were given talents that we shouldn't just be burning. We need to bless others. Kindness is free. Showing love to others is free. Let us encourage everyone around us, help each other to bloom and to grow. Thank you for watching, and God bless.